Hello, hello, and welcome to the CX Fanatics podcast, the show that helps coaches, consultants, and speakers increase revenue, referrals, and retention through exceptional customer experience. Tune in weekly for insights, interviews, and inspiration that will not only catapult your profits, but also your growth. I'm your host, Elisa Connor. Let's get into the show. Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. It's been a hot minute since I've done a podcast episode, but I am grateful to have you here and to have you back. And you're going to notice there's going to be a little bit of a shift in the topics and the people that this podcast is being created for, and that is very much on purpose. I've taken some time off because I have been recalibrating my own business, just as I tell you all to do. And I'm really focusing on the people that I tend to get as clients more often than not. And those people are consultants and coaches who also are in the speaking realm or want to be in the speaking realm. And then I'm also in that same realm speaking to speakers who want to have a coaching business or consulting business or are trying to build one, and they may be getting on stages, but they don't know how to convert more of the people that they meet on those stages and from the audience into consulting or coaching clients. And so if you're in that realm, yay, I'm so glad to have you here. And if you're not, feel free to stick around, but you're probably going to not find as much of the podcast applicable if you're not in that realm, because I'm really going to be catering content to that audience. The reason behind that is that is who most of my clients are. And so the questions that I get from that audience and from the people that I work with are things that I answer again and again. And I was like, well, I might as well, turn this into a podcast episode because I'm sure someone else in that realm also has that question. So with that in mind, this week's topic is all about how to sell beyond standing on a stage and grow your coaching and consulting business. And what I find, one of the biggest problems I find in the world of speaking is that you have speakers there. Number one, there's only so many keynotes available or so many spots for keynotes available. And so everybody is scampering to grab those spots. And I think that's fantastic. But what I see is the people that get into those spots stand up and they do their keynote, and then they're trying to pitch a giant sales pitch at the end of that, say, 1 hour speaking event, and they're not seeing very good results. And there's a couple of reasons for that. And so this episode, the first thing I want to do is dive into some of the problems with that methodology and some of the things that I've seen, not only with clients prior to working with me, but also from events that I've gone to. And I've been going to events now for, 15 years, 20 years, maybe longer, just as an entrepreneur and somebody that's a business owner. Like, I consistently go to events, and there's people that do a really great job of keynoting, and there's people that, help me Jesus. No, that's not. They need a little assistance is what I'm trying to say. So here are some of the reasons or some of the problems why high ticket packages don't convert from the stage. Number one is that you are in a really high pressure environment to try and sell. If you're on a stage and you only have an hour to speak, usually it's not an hour. Usually you have an intro, you have some time to do speaking in between, you've got Q&A at the end, and then you're done. If you're lucky, you get an hour total of standing in front of people. And that's really high pressure to try and sell anything within an hour to a bunch of people that you don't know. Like, you're standing in front of these people, probably the majority of them have never heard of you or may just know your name. They don't really know what you do. And the likelihood that you've built an ongoing relationship with them is very, very small. And so typically, if you're speaking on stages, it's because you're trying to get your name out there. Unfortunately, when you go into sales mode from your keynote, you are then also trying to pitch your services to a bunch of people that don't know you. And there's a lot of problems with that. Number one being you have not met the know, like, and trust variables that are going through their hot little brains when they're listening to you speak. And so even low ticket offers don't have a very high level of conversion simply because they cannot check off the check boxes that they need to in their own minds to justify giving you money, to opening their wallets and giving you their credit card. Not always, unless it's very strategically done. If there's a strategy behind it and there's a methodology to, whatever it is that person's talking about, that can be done and have higher success. Most often than not, there's no strategy between here's what I talked about and buy my stuff. And that is where things go awry. And so the number one issue is that there's a lack of trust and you haven't built a relationship yet. I always say to clients that want to sell from the stage, I'm like, you haven't earned the right to sell to them yet. In fact, I was at a conference this summer and I saw this happen over and over and over, and I just kind of cringed inside. And I was talking to the other attendees. I was an attendee, and they asked me, like, we were, on a break, and they said, well, what'd you think of that? And I was like, I just honestly said that was a hot mess. Like, they're like, well, what would you have done different? And so what I would have done different is what I'm telling you, is that those people did not have the right to sell to me because I did not know them. I knew nothing about them. What they talked about was not related to their offer. It was a hot, hot mess. And my guess is, don't know for sure, but my guess is they had a very hard time selling to anyone in that room. I did not see a line of people at the back of the room with their credit cards out purchasing from their offer. And so I want you to be able to avoid that and instead be more successful, even if it's not on the day of your event. The other big hiccup I see with people that are presenting at from stage, whether it's keynote or otherwise, is that they have a one-size-fits-all offer. And the reality is your audience is not all the same. They're not all dressed the same. They don't all have the same hairstyle. They don't have the same thoughts. They don't have the same experience, and they're not in the same, situation as the person even next to them. And so when we throw a one-size-fits-all offer out to people, you might have a few nibblers here and there, but the reality is you could be so much more successful if we created something that was designed for people dependent on where they are on their journey. And so that's why the customer journey is so important. And yet so many people just skip over that part of their marketing. And I want to encourage you to really think that through. That being said, when you have a one-size-fits-all approach and you just throw something out there, at the end of the event, you may be shaking your head going, oh, not again. Well, this is why, because there is no such thing as one size fits all. And we need to be cognizant of that as we're creating our offers and also putting things out there for people from the stage. The fourth reason that big packages typically don't sell well from the stage is that there's not very much time to make a decision. This goes back to, being in a very high pressure environment. There's all these speakers. Sometimes there's a lot of conversation between people and in someone's own mind about, okay, well, if I invest with this person, I can't invest with this person, and I have to make a decision right now. And speakers do this because they want to create scarcity. Well, I'm going to tell you this is the wrong way to go about it. And there are other ways that we can do that and be more successful. And we're going to dive into those a little bit deeper in this episode. But we want to remain memorable, and we want to give people a way to stay in contact with us and not necessarily just throw up on them everything that we have to offer. So that's number 4. And then number 5 is that after the event, there's a lot of excitement that dies down and enthusiasm that drops off. And as I stated in the beginning, most attendees of an event are lucky to remember 10% of what was talked about a week later after the event. And so we need to have a way to stay in front of people, to talk to people, to build a relationship, to ask questions, to have conversation back and forth, and most importantly, to stay top of mind. And so if we're examining that and we're looking at that, then the likelihood that we are going to have higher conversions, higher sales, higher profit is much more likely. So we've covered a lot of the issues that keep people from selling from the stage, or that prevent people from moving forward with you as a speaker to learn more about who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. And so I wanted to dive into the 3 different components that you can do instead. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. I should just, try to sell in my package from the stage. And we don't think beyond that. We don't think about the bigger picture. And so I put together 3 specific ways that we can do that as speakers or as coaches. All of this applies to whether you speak or not. Some way or another, you're getting out there to tell people about what you do. And chances are you're going to be asked to speak in front of a group, big, small, or otherwise, at some point in your career as a consultant or a coach. Because when you have knowledge and you help people, more often than not, you are asked to do that. So let's dive into the first piece of this. And that is that most people think about their lead magnet as something that you put on your website, and you might send people to it a couple of times, and then you probably forget about it, and then you wonder why your list isn't growing. And what they don't do is think about, okay, how can I incorporate my lead magnet and a way for people to get to know me at a free level into everything I do? And so I want you to start brainstorming about ways to do that, and ways that you can do that going forward, especially as a speaker. Because as a speaker, it is much easier to create a resource or something along with your talk that gets people on your email list. Now, when you get them on your email list, of course, you can't ignore them or just send them emails to pitch them your products and services. You actually have to do the work to build a relationship. But you can definitely create a lead magnet that will incentivize people to give you their name and email address, and then it puts the ball back in your court to start building that relationship, which means you have to consistently show up and do that. You may be wondering, that sounds great. I want to create a lead magnet, but I have no idea what to create. And especially as a coach or consultant, you may be going, I don't have anything of free value that I can offer. Or I just gave it all away to them on the stage. And so a couple of things there is that, as we just talked about, people are only going to remember maybe 10%. It's probably more like 3% of what you told them on the stage. And we know this because when we do marketing and we start putting our information out to people about our business, we have to get in front of their eyeballs like 15 times, 12 or 15 times before they even pay attention to what we're talking about. So because they've been a captive audience, they are probably paying better attention, but they're still not going to remember you unless you stay in front of them. And so when you're thinking about creating a lead magnet, it's usually nice to have that go along with or align with whatever it is you're talking about. So luckily for you, I have created an entire secret podcast specifically designed for coaches, consultants, and speakers on how to create an irresistible lead magnet, and you can get it for free. I'm going to put the link in the description below on both the podcast and the YouTube video, but you can go find it at elisaconnor.com/secret podcast, all one word, and put it in your little earballs and listen to it. There's a guide that goes with it, walks you through how to take the steps, and you too can create a fabulous lead magnet. So with that in mind, in that guide and in that training, I think the list that I put in there is 20 different lead magnets you can create. And so it talks about more than just types of lead magnets. It walks you through the entire process of creating a really good lead magnet. and one that will actually get people to opt in for it and be excited about it. So when you put it out there, people aren't going, what? So anyway, again, elisaconnor.com/secret podcast. And you can go and download that today. So the lead magnet is really just part one. It's step one of your sales funnel. And this is what I find often with coaches and consultants is they're like, oh, I set up a lead magnet and it has a form and then I send them the guide with an email and they're like, my sales funnel's done. And I'm like, no. So I'm going to say the same thing to you. No, that is like literally step A of steps A through Z that need to be done for a sales funnel and strategy. And so, yes, absolutely start there. But one of the things that I find business owners really struggle with is that they can't see beyond the forest. They think, okay, I've created this, and I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and they're like, oh, I have a sales funnel. I'm like, really? Tell me about it. And they're like, oh yeah, I have this free lead magnet and people sign up for it. And then I send them an email and then they're on my list. I'm like, great. How are they getting to buy from you? And they just sit there like deer in the headlights. I don't know. And I'm like, that's because that's like step one. You haven't done anything else to get them moving forward into the funnel. Like you've just put them at the top. Thinking through all of those steps for your funnel is really, really important. You can't just be like, throw people in the top of the funnel, email them once and then go, why aren't they buying? Or email them once and then send them a sales email and then wondering why they're not buying, why they're unsubscribing, and why your list is shrinking and not growing. So with that in mind, we have to come up with ways to nurture people in that sales funnel. And we're not going to dive deeply into that, but we are going to, I do want to bring that to your attention, because if you're just throwing people in, a lot of times people are like, okay, I put them in the sales funnel, I'm selling to them, they didn't buy, I'm going to go find more leads. And what I want you to consider is that you've spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, and chances are invested money into getting these leads in one way, shape, or form. And now if they don't buy after one email, you're going to throw them in the corner and go get more leads. And I want you to consider instead like what it would take to nurture those leads and what amount of time it would take to nurture them to get them to convert, not only convert into an initial sale, but to become the advocates for your brand and long-term customers. Because that's the possibility with nurturing people, is that if you actually dive into where they are on their journey and figure out what they need now, what they're going to need in the future, and how you can bridge the gap with what you do, the need to continually create new leads diminishes. Like, yes, you always have to add new leads to your business. I'm not saying eliminate lead generation, but what I am saying is let's make more use of the leads we already have. We've already invested into those leads. So now it's time for us to do the work to build the relationship. And this is where so many people fall off the bandwagon. And they'll go get on stages, for example, and they'll speak to 50 people. And maybe they have a lead magnet and they email people once, or they never email them, or their system is broken, or whatever it might be. And then they go to another event, and they speak in front of another 50 people. And then same thing, they don't follow up with people, or they don't buy from the stage. So then they just are like, okay, well, whatever. And that is not only a disservice to those people in the audience that probably need your help, which is why they're showing up there in the first place, but it's also a disservice to you because you've already spent the time, the energy to create a presentation, you're talking to people, and just because they didn't buy on your timeline, you're kicking them to the curb. When we're looking at our funnel, we need to take a broader approach to how we're bringing people in, how long they're going to be in the funnel, and all of this becomes more clear when we do it again and again, when we repeat, because we're going to know, okay, people that are starting at this level are going to be in the funnel for this amount of time. People that are starting at this level are going to be at this part of the, it's going to take this much time to get them moving, and all of those sorts of things. When we're creating those nurture series and we're, creating a way to nurture customers, typically we look at email marketing, but the other component of email marketing that I find is people send a one size fits all email to everybody on their list. And I would like you to consider or think about, okay, not everybody's coming into the sales process at the same place, which means they're probably at a different conversation level. And so, for example, I have several coaches that are career coaches that are clients of mine, and they have audiences that come in from different perspectives of coaching. And so, for example, one of my clients, she has people that will come in and they need career coaching and they are at an executive level. The next group of people that come in are people that are at, a manager level and they want to move up to being a director. And so the C-level emails are not going to apply to people that are in a middle management position wanting to move up to a higher position. They're totally different audiences. Yet if she didn't work with me, and I know this because this is how it used to be for her working with me, she was sending everybody the same emails. And I was like, no, wait, we have to make this more personable so that it's more applicable to the person opening the email. And she also does business coaching for people that have their own businesses. And I was like, somebody that owns their own business and is wanting to grow their business from in their career from that perspective has a whole different set of problems than somebody that's in C-level and is wanting to either move towards retirement, get out of retirement, start their own consulting, but it's all different conversation. And so when you're creating that nurture list and you're trying to get to know people and you're trying to get them to move forward with you, the more specific you can be to where they are in the process, what the problems and things that they're going through during that nurture time, the more likely they're going to start to build the know, like, trust with you, because you've actually taken the time to get to know a little bit about them. And then as you get to know them, you can start to tweak things because you're going to have more knowledge about the people you're working with. So when we're creating those nurture series, we kind of need to think through all of those processes. And then, of course, we have the tech. And I know a lot of people stress out about the tech. They're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I regularly recommend 2 different email service providers, and none of them are MailChimp. So people are like, I have MailChimp. I'm like, dump it immediately. And there's a million reasons why. I'm not going to go into them right now. My 2 favorites are still ActiveCampaign and ConvertKit. I am leaning more towards ActiveCampaign just because they keep coming out with so many amazing features. It's a little bit clunky. It's getting less clunky as the days go by, but they've added some really cool AI features and among other things in there. Have they debugged everything? No. I'm currently investigating another option for people that would be more of an all-in-one solution, but I'm not ready to go all in and promote that yet. So I'm doing a little bit more investigation and tweaking and testing and things like that. So when I feel more comfortable promoting that or telling you guys about it, I will. But right now, I don't feel comfortable enough with it to be able to say, yes, go all in on this other piece of software. So, but I am testing some other things. And I like to share that with you because I'm trying to find the best all-in-one solution for you guys, or the best solution for you to create these funnels, because I know it can be frustrating, and it also takes a lot of time if you don't understand the tech, or you don't know how to get going on it. And I see people get roped into things and I'm like, stop paying for that. It's so not worth it. So anyway, coming soon. I'll just put it there. Coming soon. We're going to have another, I'm crossing my fingers, going to have another tech stack that I can recommend to you guys. So we touched a little bit on follow-up activities and how important it is to follow up and to customize those things, customize information to people based on where they are on their customer journey. That can also be really important when you're looking at social media. A lot of times people just throw things out on social media to an audience or to people, and they're talking at people versus how are we building connections with people. And I really see this a lot on LinkedIn. You either have, oh my word, you have the people that reach out to everybody and want to friend everybody, and there's no strategy behind that at all. It's just like you have a bunch of people in your network and they're not really relevant to you, your business, what you're doing. And it's okay to break up with people on LinkedIn that are not going to help you move forward with your business. It's okay. Like, not everyone that you've ever met in your life is going to be a fit to be a client with you or going to help you connect to someone that will. And so I think that when we're utilizing social media as a whole, we need to think about what it looks like to have the number of people that we've connected with in a room. Everyone thinks that bigger is better, and that's not always the case. And I have been looking at starting a different YouTube channel just as a hobby. And I follow a couple of creators that talk about how to build that channel and how to monetize it and not have, hundreds of thousands of followers. And it's really interesting to me because they're talking, most conversations around that are like the people that have 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 followers actually monetize much better than people that have 10, 20, 30, 40, 500,000 followers. And it's because they appeal to a very specific audience and then they solve a very specific problem. And so when you're creating social media content, I want you to think about, who it is you're talking to, and also like who would they connect with, and then build your network from there. I went through a giant social media cleanse it was probably about a year ago, and I'm getting ready to do it again. Specifically on LinkedIn. I don't do a lot with Facebook. It's kind of a hot mess right now. And Instagram, I mostly just use for personal use. I really need to get better at Instagram, but when I am connecting over there, I'm doing it more strategically. And it doesn't matter if I have 10,000 followers or 10,000 people, because I could never work with 10,000 people on my own. And I'm not interested in building a business where I have 10,000 customers right now. That may change, in 10 years, but right now, no, I don't even want 10,000 customers, because to me, that would just be a logistic nightmare. So anyway, when you're thinking about how you can connect with people and build deeper relationships, could you sit and actually build deep relationships with 1,000 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people? Chances are no. And the way that social media is that you're seeing the people that have authentic audiences. The reason that they have so much engagement is because the people that are building that engagement and that nurturing have been very strategic about it. They're not just posting whatever random stuff. They're actually posting things that are of interest to their audience. And it's content that makes the viewer look at it and go, how do they know? How do they know that's me? And that takes some time. And so when you're doing anything on social media, I just want you to start thinking about things and why you're doing them and where they're leading. That is really the point of this entire episode. If you're engaging in social media, if you're hosting a webinar, if you're in a group or you're creating a community, like, what is the end result of that? And more often than not, when I hear people say they've done these things, it's like to make sales. And I'm like, yeah, but most people don't go into business for themselves just to make sales. They go into business for themselves because they want to make a difference. And so we always think that sales is the answer, but really we have to reverse our thinking on that, because sales come when we start making a difference, and we can't make a difference with people that are strangers. And so we have a much higher chance of changing someone's life when they get to know us and when we get to know them. And so when we are doing those follow-up activities, we are much more likely to start nurturing and building that relationship. And also, it's going to be much easier for them to remember who we are, what we do. And then buy from us, because ultimately nobody buys from strangers. I mean, it's very rare that somebody's going to buy from a stranger. Maybe something small like kettle corn. They might buy kettle corn. But even with that, like even at restaurants and stuff, the restaurants that are doing really well are restaurants that have taken the time to get to know their customers and also have taken the time to initiate conversation. So here's a perfect example. In the Denver area, there is a food hall. First, their marketing is very non-existent. Second, they have done no user-generated content at all. Third, they keep hosting these events, but nobody that's outside of like a 3-mile radius of this food hall even knows it's there. So when you go to another neighborhood that's like 2 miles away from this and you're like, hey, have you been to the food hall? And people are like, where's that? What is that? You have a problem. You have a marketing problem. And part of it is that they don't really gather feedback. They're just kind of running by the seat of their pants. Now, contrast that to a restaurant that I went to. My brother took me for my birthday, and like love to give him a shout out. I think it's Jan Wonton, but anyway, not close by. It was probably 45 minutes each way. They are so busy that they started as a food truck. They're so busy that you have to make a reservation. They're not open on the weekend. What restaurant's not open on the weekend? These people are killing it. Not open on the weekend. I think they're closed on Mondays. They have reservations for lunch from like 11 to 2. And then they have reservations for dinner from like 4 to 9. They are sold out every day. Every day they sell out of food. And when they run out of something, you're SOL. You're not getting it. And so contrast that to another very similar situation with smaller restaurants that are not getting traction. They're in a food hall with hopes that the food hall is going to promote them. Half the time it's empty, to this very strategically created business around a certain type of food. Asian food. But they've also done such a great job of engaging with people that used to come with them in the food truck, liking and sharing posts that people create of their food, creating conversation, sharing other people's, insights, taking their ideas and putting it into practice, all of those things. That's the difference, is they've taken the time to get to know their customers, get to know what they like, and they appreciate and acknowledge them, versus this other restaurant situation. They don't even know who comes in there. They obviously don't know because they're empty half of the time. So there's just a simple example. Like, you want to be like Jan Wonton. I'm totally screwing this up, but the Asian restaurant that is killing it. You want to be like them because you want to be that memorable that people are like, they not only love you, but they're telling everyone else about you. And so then other people are willing to give it a shot. Then they love you. And then, do you see what I'm saying? It just goes on and on and on. So then the last point in this episode that I really want to talk about is sales calls. And people who have coaching and consulting businesses, you have two schools on this. You have people that hate doing sales calls, and you have people that love doing sales calls. I have not found anybody in the middle. There's no one here in the middle. It's you hate them or you love them. And you can go back and forth in the camps, but it just is what it is. And a lot of times people that are in the I hate them camp hate sales calls because they feel like they're sleazy. They don't like to do them. They don't know what to say, all of those things. And I want to just shift your perception a little bit about sales calls. One, they are necessary. If you want to grow your business, that is. If you don't do sales calls, it's fine. But you have to get better at them to grow your business. And so if you're in the I hate sales calls camp, I really want you to listen more intently. Come back to me now to this part of the podcast. Because if you don't like selling, you're going to have a really hard time growing your business. But you can make this mindset shift. Go from not liking selling and instead swap out selling for serving. How are you serving and helping people? And in order for them to get a transformation and get their problem solved, that takes some input from them. And there has to be an exchange there, because people that do not pay to get results will not get results. It's just a natural law of the universe. There has to be an energy exchange there. And I have had, this is a perfect example. I've had people that I have taken on as clients that I've done it as a favor or because I felt bad for them and I really wanted to help them. And so they haven't paid me my full amount, and they end up being the biggest time suckers and pains in the butt, versus the people that, no problem, this is how much it is, write me a check, auto pay on their credit card. They value what I do and what I bring to the table, and there's never a qualm about paying the full amount. And so they are getting the same level of service, but they have already put their skin in the game. Whereas the people that nickel and dime you, and one, they're not serious about what they want to do. And two, they are such time sucks that at the end of the day, you're like, you almost just have to let them go so that you can focus your time and energy on the people that actually are invested in their success. And so when I say come from service, yes, deliver what you say you're going to deliver, do it with integrity, be authentic, but also ensure that you are taking on clients that value what you do, because a lot of times they don't. And that's okay. It's okay to let them go, because you're making space for somebody who does to come in the door. So when you're doing sales calls, we're shifting our thought process from, hey, I'm going to sell them one of my packages, to, okay, I'm just going to be a service. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to see what they need. And I'm going to see if there's some way that I can help them get from point A to point B that they will pay me for. And so part of getting your mindset right about that is actually doing some prep work for the sales call. And so many times I've been on a sales call with somebody and they're like, yeah, this is what I do. And they go into it and they know nothing about me. They don't know what my business is. They haven't listened to the podcast, nothing. Like, it's just, there's no research that's been done. Those sales calls end in 10 minutes because I'm like, okay, gotta go. You're not going to be a good fit for me. And so I want you to learn from that lesson and do as much prep. The internet is an amazing tool and friend. You can pretty much learn anything you want to put the effort into learning about somebody that you want to do business with. You have to do the effort. And so it goes back to our same conversation of like, can you do research and have sales calls with 10,000 people? No. Could you do it with maybe 3 or 4 people if they're going to turn into valuable clients? Absolutely. And so make sure that you're doing that pre-call research so that you're showing up prepared. It's just like going to an interview. Do the research, show up, listen to them, actively listen, ask really good questions, hear what they're saying, write down what they're saying, repeat it back to them, focus on value and what you can help them achieve, and then share stories that people have had already that have worked with you that show success. Because all of those things make it much easier for people to check off the boxes of, oh, they've helped somebody else like me. Oh, this is how I get started. Oh, they really are listening. They repeated back to me what they've said. Versus like, here's all my crap. Here's the 17,000 features of what I offer. And like, they're just, that is an automatic no, because you haven't checked the boxes. So when we're making those sales calls, we have to be ready. We have to be prepared. We have to ask the right questions. We have to have our ducks in a row and a process that we walk people through. And I think a lot of times people just hop on a call and they're like wanting to sell somebody something, and they haven't even thought through like, okay, what is it that these people really need? And they're not asking questions and they're just immediately talking. So if you're having low success on sales calls, this is probably why. So, okay. So that's a wrap for today. I just recap for you what we went through. Number 1, we talked through the problems that people have from selling from the stage. Number 2, we went through the importance of creating a lead magnet that actually helps people get to know you and gets them in your ecosphere. Just a reminder, I do have a training, a secret podcast you can go and download that can get you started in the right direction with that lead magnet. And it is available now, elisaconnor.com/lead magnet, /secret podcast. You can go find it at elisaconnor.com/podcast and get started on creating your own lead magnet. That was number 2. Number 3 is next we talked about how to nurture your network. So go grab that lead magnet, irresistible lead magnet training at elisaconnor.com/secret podcast and get started on building that lead magnet so you have it for your next speaking engagement. Then we dove into how to nurture leads and not just shove them into a sales cycle and then forget about them. And then last but not least, we talked about non-salesy sales calls, non-sleazy sales calls. We talked about non-sleazy sales calls. So when you put all that together, you're going to have an easier time selling high ticket offers. It may not be directly from the stage. In fact, in most cases, it won't. But at the end of the day, you're actually going to increase your revenue and your profit more quickly because you're building deeper relationships with people and they're going to turn into long-term clients. So if you've enjoyed today's podcast, I would love for you to leave a review. Those really help, or share it with a friend. In the meantime, I will see you next week. Be well, take care, and I'll see you soon. Did you miss something in the show today? Maybe you didn't have time to take notes or you're listening on the go. Don't worry, I've taken the notes for you. Head on over to profitgrowthclub.com/podcast. You can find the notes and all of the links for this episode and every episode. In the meantime, take care, stay well, and I'll see you soon.